In this video, I'm going to do some examples on how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay, so let's start off with this particular example. And the main goal is that we want to make this into a perfect square trinomial so that we can be able to simplify it much more quickly, okay? So the first step I need you to do is move this C term over to the other side, okay? And we're going to do that by adding it, okay? And that's going to equal 5. I want to leave a little space here, okay? And basically, I want you to look at the middle term. The middle term is -2, okay? And you notice that this is going to be your B term right here, okay? Your 2 is your B term. So we're going to take that 2, okay? And we are going to take half of it and square it. And that's what this formula here is, -b/2. So we're going to take half of the middle term, which is going to be a 1, okay? I'm sorry, we're going to plug it in. So we're going to take the B term and plug it in, and then go ahead and take divide it by 2. That means take half of it, and then we're going to square it. Okay, well, first of all, -2 divided by a 2 is -1, and when we square that, we get 1. Okay, so we are going to add 1 to both sides of the equation. And then now we can express the trinomial on the left side. Oops. Writing the wrong number. X minus 1 equals 6. Just add 5 and 6. So we can express that. That's a perfect square trinomial. So it's going to be the product of x minus 1 times x minus 1. Okay? And so what we're basically writing that, we're rewriting the left side in this form. We're rewriting the left side as x plus h squared. Okay? And h is half of b. Okay? Does that make sense? Let me rewrite that. H is half of b. Okay? All right. Now, we need to solve for x, right? So remember, we take the square root. We use the square root method on both sides, right? So that when we take the square root of x minus 1 squared, we're just left with x minus 1. This is going to be plus or minus the square root of 6. Square root of 6 really doesn't simplify to anything, so I'm going to leave it under the radical. Then I'm going to move the 1 over by adding it. So this just becomes x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 6. Okay? And that would be your solution for this equation. Let's do a couple more examples. So let's say we had x minus 6x, x squared minus 6x minus 2 equals 0. The first step is to move the 2 over to the right side. And then we're just left with x squared minus 6x. We're going to leave some space, and then 0 and 2 is 2. So remember the formula. Okay, we have minus b over 2 squared. So your b term is going to be your 6, right? Minus 6. Okay, so we're going to replace that with 6 over 2. Square it. Half of -6 is -3. And we square that and we get 9. So what we're going to add is 9 to both sides. And this whole left side can be written as a perfect square trinomial. So when we factor it, we can express that as x minus 3 squared equals 11. Okay? And then now we can go ahead and take the square root on both sides. And then you can just write it as x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 11. And if we bring the 3 over to the other side, then we get x equals, 3 plus or minus the square root of 11. And then that would be your answer for the problem. All right, let's do another one. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is move my constant, my c constant over. So then I have x squared minus 3x equals a minus 1. Okay? So what's going to be b in this case? It's going to be 3, right? And when I square that, I get a positive 9 over 4. So I'm going to add a positive 9 over 4 to both sides. And now I can express my left side as a perfect square trinomial. So it'll be x minus 9 over 4. I'm sorry, not 9 over 4. Minus 3 over 2 squared. And then this one I'm going to have to simplify here. So we have negative 1 over 1 plus 9 over 4. Going to multiply both the left side by 4. So when I do that, I get minus 4 over 4 plus 9 over 4. And negative 4 plus 9 is in fact positive 5 over 4. Okay? Then I can take the square root on both sides. When I do that, I get x minus 3 over 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5 over 4, because I can't really simplify that. And then when I bring the 3 halves over, I get x equals 3 over 2 plus or minus square root of 5 over 4. Okay, or you can express it as 3 plus or minus the square root of 5 over the square root of 4, but then that simplifies to 3 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2, and that would be your answer. Okay? All right. So I have another example to show you on the next slide. Okay, let's bring that 12 over by adding it. So again, that's going to be 2x squared plus 8x equals a 12. All right. Okay, so what's my b term? It's going to be 8, right? So I'm going to have minus 8 over 4 squared. All right. So negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. And when I square that, I'm going to get a positive 4. Okay, so I'm going to have to add 4 to both sides. And when I do that, before I can do that, let me just back up here 1 second. Before I add the 4, let's just hold that thought for a minute. You notice that I have 2x squared plus 8x equals 12, which is good. We got half of the middle term, which is 4. Before I add that 4 to both sides, I just need to do one thing really quick, and I need to divide the coefficient of 2 on both sides of the equation, because I don't want 2x squared, I want just x squared. When I write this as a perfect square trinomial, the coefficient of the x squared term should be 1. So we're going to do that. We're going to divide that out, and then we'll get x squared plus 4x equals 6. And then I can proceed by adding 4 to both sides. Okay? Now we're going to be in good shape. Now we can go ahead and say, okay, this is a perfect square trinomial, so I can write it as x plus 2 squared. Again, both signs are plus, so it has to be plus x squared plus x plus 2 squared equals 10. And then I can take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I just get x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 10, because we can't simplify that. And when I subtract the 2 on the other side, I get x equals minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. And then that should do it for that example. Okay, so just be careful. Divide the coefficient, the a coefficient out if it's more than 1, or if it's not 1. If it's anything but 1, divide it out. Okay? That way, and then you can take half the middle term and then add it to your left side and right side. Okay? So that was just something I wanted to mention to you. Okay, so that is the basic concept of adding it to, that's the basic concept of solving quadratic equations by completing the square. Thank you so much for watching.